You're the only one worrying about your appearance. Let's tie up the loose ends. At the outset, you expressed dissatisfaction with Adler's definition that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems, right? That was the basis of our discussion on feelings of inferiority. Yes, that's correct. The subject of feelings of inferiority was too intense, and I was on the verge of forgetting the point. Why did you bring up the subject in the first place? It is connected with the subject of competition. Please remember that if there is a competition at the core of a person's interpersonal relationships, he will not be able to escape interpersonal relationship problems or escape misfortune. Why not? Because at the end of a competition, there are winners and losers. It's perfectly fine to have winners and losers. Give some thought give some thought to it. Then, if it were you specifically who had a consciousness of being in a competition with people around you, in your relations with them, you would have no choice but to be conscious of victory or defeat. Mr. A got into this famous university. Mr. B found work at a big company. And Mr. C has hooked up with such a nice looking woman. And you compare yourself to them and think, this is all I got. Haha, that's pretty specific. When one is conscious of competition and victory and defeat, it is inevitable that feelings of inferiority will arise, because one is constantly comparing oneself to others and thinking, I beat the person or I lost to that person. The inferiority complex and superiority complex are extensions of that. Now, what kind of being do you think the other person is to you at that point? I don't know. A rival, I guess. No, not a mere rival. Before you know it, you start to see each other. It, you start to see each and every person, everyone in the whole world as your enemy. My enemy. You start to think that people are always looking down on you and treating you like with scorn. That they they're all enemies who must never be underestimated, who lie in wait for any opening in attack at the drop of a hat. In short, that the world is a terrifying place. Enemies enemies who must never be underestimated. That's who I am in competition with. This is what is to is so terrifying about competition. Even if you're not a loser, even if you're not someone who keeps on winning, if you are someone who has placed himself in competition, you will never have a moment's peace. You don't want to be a loser. You always have to go and you always have to keep on winning if you don't want to be a loser. You can't trust other people. The reason so many people don't really feel happy while they're building up their success in the eyes of society is that they are living in competition. Because to them, the world is a perilous place that is overflowing with enemies. I suppose so, but do other people actually look at you so much? Are they really watching you around the clock and lying in wait for the perfect moment to attack? It seems rather unlikely. A young friend of mine, when he was a teenager, used to spend a lot of time in front of the mirror arranging his hair. And once, when he was doing that, his grandmother said, you're the only one who's worried how you look. He says that it got a bit easier for him to deal with life after that. Hey, that's a dig to me. That's a dig at me, isn't it? Sure, sure, maybe I do see the people around me as enemies. I'm constantly in fear of being attacked, of the arrows that could come flying at me at any time. I always think that I'm being watched by others, that I'm being subjected to harassed judgment, and I'm going to be attacked. And it's probably true that this is a self-conscious reaction, just like the mirror obsessed teenager. The people of the world aren't paying attention to me. Even if I were to go walking on my hands down the street, they'd take no notice. But I don't know. Are you saying, after all, that my feeling of inferiority is someone that I choose that has some sort of goal? That just does that just doesn't make any sense to me. And why is that? I have a brother who is 3 years older than I am. He fits the classic image of the big brother. He always does what our parents say. He excels in his studies and in sports, and he's the very picture of diligence. And from the time I was little, I was always compared to him. He is older and more advanced, so of course I could never beat him at anything. Our parents did not care at all about such circumstances and never gave me any sign of recognition. Whatever I did, I got treated like a child, and I was berated at every opportunity and told to be quiet. I learned to keep my feelings to myself. I've lived my life totally steeped in feelings of inferiority, and I had no choice but to be conscious of being in a competition with my brother. I see. Sometimes I think of it like this: I'm like a cord that grew without getting enough sun. So it, it is only natural that I'm all twisted with my feelings of inferiority. If there's anyone who could grow straight in such situation, well, I'd like to meet him. I understand. I really do understand how you feel. Now, let's look at competition while taking into consideration your feelings with your brother. If you didn't think with a competition orientation with regard to your brother and your interpersonal relationships, how would people seem to you? Well, my brother is my brother, and I guess other people are another story. No, they should become more positive comrades. Comrades. Earlier, didn't you say, I can celebrate other people's happiness with all my heart? You think of interpersonal relationships as competition. You perceive other people's happiness as my defeat, and that is why you can celebrate it. However, once once one is released from the scheme of competition, the need to triumph over someone disappears. One is also released from the fear of that says, maybe I will lose, and one becomes able to celebrate other people's happiness with all one's heart. One may become able to contribute actively to other people's happiness. The person who always has the will to help another in times of need, that is someone who may properly be called your comrade. Hmm? Now, now we come to the important part. When you were when when you are able to truly feel that people are my comrades, your way of looking at the world will change utterly. No longer will you think of the world as a perilous place or be plagued by needless doubts. The world will appear before you as a safe and pleasant place, and your interpersonal relationship problems will decrease dramatically. What a happy person you are. But that's all I that's all like a sunflower. It's the reasoning of a sunflower that it is bathed in full sunshine every day and is nurtured with ample watering. A gourd grown in the dim shade doesn't do so well. You are returning to etiology, the attributing of cause again. Oh yes, I'm sure. Raised by strict parents, the youth had been oppressed and compared to his older brother ever since childhood. None of his opinions were ever heard, and he was subjected to the violent words that he was a poor excuse for a little brother, unable to make friends even at school, spent all his free time alone in the library, which became his sole place of refuge. This youth who had passed his early years in such a way was truly an inhabitant of its theology. If he had not been raised by those parents, if that older brother had never existed, and if he had not attended that school, he could have had a brighter life. The youth had been trying to participate in the discussion as cold headedly as possible. But now, his many years of pent up feelings came bursting out.